Hello and welcome to the Circuit Breakers podcast interview series here. I'm your host, Steve Semler, and today I'm joined by Nicole Middendorf, who's the founder and CEO of Prosperwell Financial. It's a Minnesota company that connects people's dreams and goals with practical planning and living life to the fullest. So I'm really going to be interested to hear Nicole's story here. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having
Would
me.
you like to Would you like to kick us off with a brief background and about kind of who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, never planned on being a wealth advisor. I know so many times we have a thought or an idea of how our life is going to go, and then it sometimes doesn't necessarily go how it's planned or how you think. And that happened to me. Grew up only child, figure skater, had the blessed opportunity to study abroad over in Germany. I studied over there in high school as well as in college. And so from that, I learned about the United Nations and just fell in love with the UN. And I'm like, I'm going to go to law school. I learned about Madeleine Albright, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I was like, I want to be those two women and make global and international change. And so went to school for international business and marketing, but ended up meeting someone in college, and he had other plans for me than I had for myself. He had dreamt of being a stockbroker his whole life and went to college for finance. And so once I graduated and was starting to look at law schools, he's like, no, you're going to work with me. I didn't really understand that meant you're going to work for me. He was starting out as a stockbroker back then, but that's how I became a financial advisor, was really through, you see where the story's going, through my now ex-husband. But so I just started as an advisor, got licensed, studied, got all the exams and everything. I got started at Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter back then, which became Morgan Stanley, and then left in 2003 to start my own firm and go independent. And then fast forward, we had our son, and then we had our daughter. And then back on August 4th of 2010 was the first time the 911 phone call went through, and my now ex-husband was arrested for the first time for domestic assault. And so from the outside, my life looked perfect. Social media makes lives look so amazing. And I think I'd written one or two books by that time. I had done a radio show every Saturday, living in the big house, had the boat, the four-wheelers, snowmobiles, like all of this stuff. But I got to the kids to bed one night, and, they were 3 and 2. And I'm like, how did I end up here? I didn't pick out a single thing. I didn't want the house. I didn't want all of this stuff that we had, let alone I didn't even pick out my career. And so I always had lists. As I stated, I was a figure skater, and I was blessed with the opportunity to have one of my coaches had her PhD in psychology. So she always worked with me with the power of your mind. And I truly believe it. Like, if you believe it, you can achieve it. And so I rewrote my bucket list, and I just committed to myself to do one thing a month for a year. Well, met with my best friend from college and said, hey, here's my 12 things that I'm going to do for a year, and I want to drive a race car. Will you go up to northern Minnesota with me and drive a race car? And he's like, Nick, anything you do, you don't just put 100% into it. You put 180. You need to go to a real speedway. I'm like, what's that? He's like, Vegas. Go this weekend. I'm like, great, let's go. And he's like, no. He's like, you need to go by yourself. And so I hopped on a plane to fly to Vegas just simply to drive a race car. And I don't know if you've ever been on a plane where someone has to talk to you the whole time. I had that gentleman. And for some reason, like, looking back now, I'm like, I do not know how, I made it. I really don't. 2 kids under the age of 3. I was going through a divorce, running a business, owning a commercial building, just doing the radio and the TV and writing books, and still felt compelled to stay in the local book club. And that month was Steve Jobs's book. So I'm trying on the plane to get this book done and feeling just all this pressure of life. And this gentleman would not leave me alone. And he's asking me, he found out I was a financial advisor. So he's like, oh, what stock should I buy? And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. You need to be a client. and then he's like, well, you're not going to Vegas to gamble? And I'm like, I'm a financial advisor. I gamble people's money every single day. Like, I don't need to go to Vegas for that. I'm like, I'm simply just going to drive a race car. And he couldn't understand it. And so I said, I'm like, look, I rewrote my bucket list and I'm doing one thing a month for a year. He finally then was quiet and he's like, I am so sorry. He's like, you are so young. Is it cancer? And so it was at that moment where I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't go around telling people I'm doing something on my bucket list, because when you tell people you're doing something on your bucket list, they think you're dying. So I just started calling it the Live It list.
Well,
Then I learned 1 in 3 Americans is happy. I learned if you spend more money on experiences, you're going to be happier than if you spend money on things. And so I finally had this aha moment of like, oh my gosh, like I've always loved helping people, but I always felt like there was so much more for me in life. And it was this aha moment of like, here it is. Here's how I can like tip financial planning upside down, because so many times people are so intimidated when it comes to money. And for me, those feelings that you have when you're in a domestic violent relationship, those feelings of intimidation, someone else has control. A lot of those feelings will never go away from me. And a lot of those feelings people have when it comes to their money. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like here's the magic. Like, this is why I'm a wealth advisor. This is why I have the Live It list. I truly believe like things happen for a reason. And out of the worst things come the best. And so here's something that I used that really transformed my life. And now I can help other people do it. And that's really the whole focus. Now we have the liveitlist.com. We do coaching. We take people on Live It List trips. We do local Live It List events. We now have a Live It List journal where you can put your vision board in there, and there's tons of questions like, what's your why? Why do you do what you do? And so I feel like I'm becoming more of a motivational speaker as well as a wealth advisor, really helping people find what their magic is and what drives them and have that tied into their money so that they truly can live life to the fullest and truly have happiness.
Yeah, neat. And it's such a holistic approach, but at the same time, coming to it from the financial side of it is very unusual.
Mm-hmm.
And how has that helped you over the years working that, kind of coming to it with that
Yeah. I mean,
finance side?
for me, it's helped me be very authentic and be very real. And, I was on stage in like 2012, 2013. And prior to that, I was I really kept the domestic violence. I was embarrassed by it. And I really very few people knew about what had happened and what was going on. I mean, they knew I was going through a divorce, but like they didn't know the context and, all of the things behind it. And so I was on stage and I was at this women's conference, and this woman asked a question, and I don't remember what the question was. I don't remember what my answer was, but it was the first time ever that I alluded to the fact that I had gone through a very difficult relationship and was a survivor or learning to become a survivor of domestic violence. And so I got off stage and all these women were coming up to me afterwards, crying, like, I'm in this now, what advice do you have to get out, to, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing your story, my friend, my neighbor, whomever. To the point that the woman running the conference was like, I need you to go in the hallway because you're ruining it for the next speaker. And it was at that moment where I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, like I need to share my story, because by me sharing my story and being very authentic, I'm helping other people, let alone I also then was helping myself and processing through everything. And so it just, I learned to be very authentic and be very real and to be vulnerable and to share. But I also then learned that it's a way for me to help people think differently about money, because so many times, I see people, or people come into the office, or, they message me or follow me on LinkedIn or whatever it is. And there's just this general, I don't know, I feel like the pandemic precipitated even more, but there's this general like unhappiness.
Mm.
Like people are stressed out, and I watch people like buy, let me buy the bigger house, or let me, we live so much in this society of our phones, and like, oh my gosh, look at, where they took their family, and look at the house that they're doing, and look at what this kid is doing, and look at what this mom is doing. And like, there's this fear of being left out, and like, well, they have that, we should do this. And I just feel like there's this so much money is spent on trying to help yourself be happy. And that's not what really brings happiness. It's not more stuff. And so that's, for me, it's all about changing how people think about money and bringing it into what really is your why. Like, why do you get up in the morning? And so that's where, for years I would joke that I'm more of a therapist than a wealth advisor. But now I truly see it. Like I'm a coach, like helping someone, because like we can help people get to retirement. We can help people get their kids to college. We can help you take the trips. But what is it all for? Because literally, the amount of times that someone suddenly passes away, or there's a medical illness, or, it's just, it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you don't have your happiness and if you don't have your health, you really actually don't have anything. And so it's bringing that awareness to people and really bringing that that thoughtfulness. That's what and it's not just me, it's our whole team, and it's what makes us different as a business, as a company, and even just the environment. Like it's amazing the amount of times people comment of the energy that's here in our building, let alone the energy that I give off, or the team gives off. It's just this. We don't want it that you're thinking about your money and you're scared about it, or that you're in fear of it, or that it's overwhelming. Yes, of course it's money, and we're going to tell you, the things that you need to do, and we'll help you do them, but in a very non-intimidating and focused on the happiness and focused on the financial planning side of things. So.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've managed to tap into that to that positive side of the brain, kind of the sage sort of piece, with the whole team too, as well as with the clients, which is really, awesome to see. One of the reasons that I work on the leadership field and have for so long is because, kind of like, throwing a pebble on the pond that creates ripples.
Mm-hmm.
I can help a leader be more comfortable and effective, and create a humane workplace.
Yeah.
That affects the employees, that affects their family members, the customers, the bigger organization. So that's kind of why I choose to do the leadership work as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Yeah. How did you bring that to the team and get the whole team to be thinking in that fashion from the business sense?
Yeah. I think, you are who you surround yourself with. And so
Mm.
I really feel like the clients that we attract are lots of business owners, lots of type A people, lots of givers, and lots of people that love to travel and really have experiences. And so it was an easy mix. It's also and so one, like I feel like I attract that from a client standpoint, let alone from a team standpoint as well. And like we just had our team meeting, and so our company holiday party is not just like dinner somewhere. We're going go-kart racing. And the decision this year was, do we do rock climbing, or do we do go-kart racing? And so it's one, doing local events for ourselves and local experiences. And two, also then bringing them and doing that with clients, let alone not just like, oh, here's your financial plan and here's retirement. Here's what it looks like when you sell your business. It's, oh my gosh, you've always wanted to take the kids and the grandkids to Ireland, like helping make that happen. And when you help someone make that happen, like it was easy. It's just a natural flow. But I feel like it's the values we have as a team, and our mission and vision as our company. I don't think that someone that doesn't fit that, or I don't want to say adhere because it's not the right word, but someone that doesn't share our same values isn't going to be a fit for us. your typical financial advisor is a 62-year-old male. That's not me. We do things just a little bit differently.
Uh, and there's the team building part of that a lot of folks kind of miss, I think, kind of from even in the training industry and stuff, where team building isn't just getting people together to do activities.
Mhm.
It's getting people together to have experiences together and to work together, even where those experiences are fun,
Mhm.
but bringing the values together. So it's really neat to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the best books that I read was Traction. And we
Mm.
follow that. We meet every morning. We say the what we're grateful for and the three things that we're working on for the day. We then meet once a week for our longer meeting of, where are we at? What are our rocks? And then once a month, we have our development day. And then once a year, we have our bigger retreat. And so that for me was just a game changer. And that's where the team like jokes, how much can Nicole be out of the office and not working on the business rather than working in the business. So
Exactly. Yeah. How um how do you get how do you celebrate and recognize the little stuff around what people are doing and what you're noticing? Because I know
yeah.
that's kind of a key piece in there too.
Yeah. So it'll be like the emails. We have a little wow award. So our whole focus of the company is to like wow our clients, let alone I want to wow the employees. And so, we'll give out like little gift cards and stuff like that. But really it's more or less like the recognition. It's in our team meeting, we have little slips of paper that anyone can write, anonymously, like, wow, this person did something, or wow, this person did something. And so those are read at the meeting, but it's, I'll leave little notes for people and like little thank you notes. And so it's those smaller things. It's, people just want to feel appreciated. And so it's those smaller things up to those bigger things of us doing events and going to the comedy club together and having those, shared experiences, let alone pulling in like their significant others and participating in stuff as well.
Yeah. I wrote an article for my leadership and coaching newsletter recently called "Say Thank You and Mean It."
Mm-hmm.
And that's wonderful ways to say thank you and mean it.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
appreciate folks. Well, what are the challenges? What if you could wave a magic wand over your business and make one thing better or remove one kind of key obstacle? What might that be?
Um, it's taking things to the next level. Like, I never, like when I left Morgan Stanley 22 years ago, I would have never thought I would own like a 9,000 square foot commercial building. Never thought that I would have written 6 books. Never thought that I would have done the radio show and done all the TV stuff, let alone be potentially looking at other states and having offices in other states. So now it's like, okay, wow, here's where I was. Here's where I am. Okay, now here's where I want to go. And like what got me to where I am is different than where I need to go. And that was what I was learning. Like I kept like doing the same thing. And like when you get to a different point in your business, you can't do things how you've always done them. And so it's shifting, so right now we're in this shifting process of like, what do we need to change so we can like take everything to the next level? And so for me, my goal is I want to be on stage in Italy at a women's conference, doing the keynote talk and inspiring women, and then doing a breakout session specifically about money and bringing my daughter with on the trip and spending a little extra time in Italy. For me, it's having an office in Florida and other states, having more women in the financial services industry because it is a phenomenal career for women. We are phenomenal listeners. We're super organized. It's a phenomenal career, but it's very difficult for women to stick it out. And I would love to be able to provide that platform for women to do that. And then it's changing how people think about money and how people think about happiness. I want to move. I'm the type of person where it's like I'm a needle mover. Like if you're coming up with too much resistance or something, it's like, okay, this isn't working. Let me shift and retool. But I really want to move that needle. Like 1 in 3 Americans is happy. Like all of us should be happy. Like we have the ability to vote. We have the ability to drive on roads. We can go to a store. Like we can order things online. Like if we want to start a business, we can do it. And, for us to not be, all of us be happy. And I'm not saying like, that doesn't mean you have to have happiness 24/7. Like life is not perfect. Things happen, car accidents happen, things happen. But that overall, you're happy with where you're working. You're happy with where you're living. You're happy with your health, your fitness, all of those things. So.
Yeah. And it's not a passive happiness. It's like you're saying, it's an active happiness. Hey, I want to do this. You have this experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many people are like, oh my gosh, like you get up at 4:15 every morning. I'm sure you must have a bunch of cups of coffee. I'm like, no, I get up at 4:15 every morning. This morning, I actually got up at 4 because it's like, I'm wide awake. And there's, oh my gosh, I've got so much to do. And I wrote a few thank you notes this morning, and then I got my daughter to the ice arena, and I worked out, and, had a meeting at the school. And so it's like, it's that when you have that fire in your belly and your love of life, and your why, and you have your passion, you just go and do, and you love it. And again, it doesn't mean that everything's always perfect. Nothing is. But when you have the live it list, for me, it was it made, when life got stressful, it made those stressful moments less stressful. And like, okay, if I can swim with sharks, like this is nothing. If I can rappel down this building and not die, like this is nothing. It boosts your confidence and helps you really live life to the fullest.
Yeah. And I think you may have just given some of the advice for aspiring entrepreneurs, like you usually end with. But what other tips or advice would you give for either aspiring entrepreneurs or folks who are facing challenges?
I would say two things. Take risks while you're young. I mean, I still consider myself young, so I'm taking risks, but take risks when you're young, because you have more time to learn from those mistakes, and they're mistakes. Like they're there for a reason. Don't be fearful of them. That's how you learn and you retool. And then the second thing is to give yourself grace along the way.
Yep, absolutely. And that's part of, like I mentioned, the positive intelligence stuff that I'm doing. Part of that mental operating system for mental fitness is empathy for yourself as well as empathy for others, and being able to recognize when you're judging, whether it's yourself or others or the situation, and just stop yourself. 10 seconds of attention to a physical sensation, whether it's sight or sound or hearing or just kind of the weight of your body. That's enough to allow that survival brain activation to fade. So give yourself grace. You can do it. Absolutely. Well, thank you. I really appreciate the time, Nicole, and all of the wonderful advice and stories and how you got to where you are, and taking potential disadvantages, taking difficult situations and turning those into positives, especially. So thank you very much. So for folks watching the podcast, when you run into challenges in your own life and business situation, take Nicole's advice to heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And for folks watching, hope to see you in the next episode. Thanks.